AI agents are no longer a prospect of the future with a far fetched potential for value delivery. Now, today's variants are moving far beyond low level process automation. They can think, act, and coordinate goals independently, navigate complex enterprise environments, problems, and workflows, communicate with and control external tools, agents, and systems, as well as learn, adapt, and improve alongside their human counterparts. This isn't a hype anymore, it's a reality, and one that we must understand how to navigate if we are to pursue agentic transformation initiatives successfully and responsibly. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Analytics Insight podcast, where we talk about the ever evolving tech space. And I'm your host, Priya Dialani. The AI agent revolution isn't around the corner, it's knocking on our doors already with intensity, risk, and opportunity. While realizing how to best extract and operationalize AI agents' value will not be easy, it will be necessary for businesses that aim to capitalize on this incoming wave of AI innovation. Let's welcome Arjun Nagulapally, Chief Technology Officer at iOS, to help us understand how organizations can shift from automating tasks to orchestrating ever adapting processes with agentic AI. Hi, Arjun, how are you doing?
Hi Priya, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good too. Thank you. Great. So it's a pleasure to have you on a podcast today, Arjun. And of course, a lot of people have been talking about agentic AI. What are the opportunities that agentic AI is bringing on the table? But definitely, we need to understand a lot about agentic AI before we get on the adoption phase and ensure that we are integrating or adopting agentic AI successfully. Definitely, we would like more insights around this from you, Arjun. But let's start our podcast by letting our listeners know more about the company. So, if you could help us understand about it and its specialization, it would be great.
Wonderful. Great topic and opportune for the right audience. So I'll quickly start about giving a background about our company, AIonOS. AI on OS stands for Artificial Intelligence and Operating Systems. Right. So we are a 2-year-old startup, but we are part of a 35-year-old legacy of Interglobe Enterprises. Interglobe has a bunch of companies. The most flagship organization is Indigo Airlines. So we are the latest and the most recent addition to the Interglobe family. INOS was started by two founders, I would say CP Gurnani, who has been the ex CEO for Tech Mahindra, and Rahul Bhatia, who is the founder for Interglobe Enterprises. Right, and Interglobe has diversified set of businesses from travel, transport, logistics, hospitality. Indigo Airlines being one, Interglobe Hotels, and Movin on a B2B logistics area. We do have flight simulator set up as a company. And IONOS is the latest addition. And the entire premises of starting IONOS was to fundamentally transform enterprises with AI at the core. Right? So that's what the founders strongly believed in, that how can technology, and it's not just any technology, but technology that can augment human intelligence and can make humans a lot more strategic, right? So that's where the whole genesis of the organization has been, on focusing on very industry specific use cases, industry specific transformations, in which INOS currently focuses on. So our charter is pretty clear that we are focusing on travel, transport, logistics, and hospitality as our core industries that we're focusing on, along with telecom, which comes with our natural DNA in the company of being able to disrupt these industries with AI as a technology.
That's wonderful, Arjun, and thank you for sharing that about INOS. We are always inspired to hear about how companies like INOS are making an impact in the overall tech space and how we are driving more innovations to make business efficiency more seamless and personalize the entire journey. Let's dive a little deeper now into your role, Arjun. You are a visionary tech leader with over 18 years of experience across world class organizations, including Microsoft, Genpact, PayPal, and TCS. So, how has the journey been till date, Arjun, and what exactly is your role at the company today?
So interestingly, I started my journey as a developer, right? I started my career in the US working for a healthcare company called Epic Systems, right? And that was the time where it was the very early days of how do you transform healthcare with providing digital sort of footprint for hospitals. How do you make hospitals run efficiently? And how can technology aid, right? So enabling physicians to put orders digitally, enabling pharmacies to dispense medications at scale, enabling nurses to be able to get the medicines from the file cabinets from the hospitals with a lot more care, right, with zero mistakes and drug delivery. So that's where my experience has spanned about interfacing with robotics, working with much more scalable technologies, and obviously at PayPal, where I was able to help build, enterprise scale applications which are able to take billions of transactions of data from processing payments across the world. To most recently, my last 10 years stint at Microsoft, building products across all the three verticals of Dynamics, Azure, and Windows. So the commonality that I see across all of that is how are we putting customer at the center of a problem, and then figuring out how can technology play a significant role in providing the right experiences and solving some of the fundamental problems of a customer, right? And when I talk about a customer, it's about a specific persona, right? A specific moment in time. Are we able to cater and make somebody's life much easier? And that's what the role of technology has always been, right? It's about enabling a business to run at a much more efficient and faster pace. So if I look back, I always felt that understanding and having the right set of tools and tech is important to solve the right problem. So, and interestingly, I've had experience working with machine learning, have had experience working with some of the earlier frontier models. And my most recent stint at Microsoft, where I was enabling the Microsoft Windows Store to have a much richer engagement by developers by putting some of the newer chat GPT kind of an experience to improve the developer productivity and to get an app certified much faster. So all of this have significantly played a role in defining how I look at enterprise products, enterprise scenarios, and help an enterprise scale with the right set of technologies.
That's amazing, Arjun. And it's always great, to get a behind the scenes look at how much thought and effort goes into making things work at your level currently. I'm sure our listeners have got an understanding of the kind of impact a leadership can have in driving the innovation and growth that a company needs in this era of digital transformation. Moving ahead, now AI agents, like we spoke earlier, it definitely represents the next wave of artificial intelligence with the potential to solve the Gen AI paradox. The fact that while many companies are adopting Gen AI, few are achieving significant bottom line impact from its use. Of course, realizing agentic impact involves more than technology deployment. It calls for bold strategic intent, cross functional integration, and a deliberate redesign of workflows, talent models, and governance structures. Now, we have seen AI being applied broadly across industries, but the real value seems to come from domain specific solutions. So, why is industry specialization so critical when designing agentic AI models?
And that's a fantastic question. So let's dive into understanding how this technology is different from the technology before it, right? And that's always the case. Whenever technology evolves, it evolves at an exponential phase, right? So if we just look back over the last 20, 25 years, right, about the evolution of technology, it's about having machines to crunch data, to be able to perform faster iterations so that a human is able to process and get sense of putting information into the system and using it for later use, right? So that's what predominantly most of the last 20, 25 years of technology has been, be it digitization, be it moving stuff to cloud, being providing SaaS applications to users, where all technology has enabled is for humans to get information accessible across multiple different surfaces, to be able to put data in a place where they're able to process it across multiple different systems, right? For example, think about a sales system, right? The biggest problem a CRM is solving today is for a salesperson to be able to know what kind of contacts they're actually going to have, when are they going to schedule the meetings, how is their lead pipeline, their opportunity pipeline flowing, and what kind of a revenue projection they can provide, right? So all of this is data in and being able to provide data out. right? So when I have a conversation with my potential customer, I'm going to mark that my particular job of having a meeting, getting the action items out of the meeting, all documented and put it in a system so that drives at least the business sanity. At the same time, provides enough data points for the organization and also to the sales excellence team to know that a certain sort of processes are being followed, right? So technology has always played a role in obviously enabling a particular user to be a lot more productive. Now flip the game, right? The game is flipped is primarily because now technology understands, AI understands humans rather than humans understanding technology. Earlier, I used to get trained on using a product, using a CRM application so that I know how to use it, right? But with ChatGPT or with Claude or with Google Gemini, I can simply punch in a sentence in English where all I have to do is tell my intent of what I want to do, and the system figures out what has to happen and then respond back. So it's a lot more advanced, lot more in a way trying to solve without explicitly understanding the details about what the computer program system architecture, any of the technical nuances that a person has to understand, right? Which means suddenly the bar of adoption of technology has significantly gone down. Anybody who can communicate in a specific language will be able to leverage AI and get value out of it, right? So it's not about I'm going to write a program, I'm going to have a training material for that, I'm going to enable the sales team how to sell it, I'm going to have a user documentation story created so that users are able to adopt. All of the challenges that were there before, the agentic movement, that ChatGPT movement that happened 3 years back, is now getting solved, where simply the wall of adoption and the wave of technology being able to solve some of the very basic problems of discovery, being able to get questions answered, getting through the clutter of all of the information out there to help process much faster, right? Some of the fundamental problems that technology used to earlier solve has gone down exponentially easier now. That's one way where we talk about Gen AI playing a significant role in helping and transforming some of the use cases for everybody. It's on consumer space, it's on the enterprise space, it's everywhere you see this disruption happening. That's number one, right? Number two is when we talk about agentic AI, right? Agentic AI is different from any other traditional software application that we have seen. And in a truly, scientific and computer nomenclature, agent is it's not a physical thing, right? Agent is something that can apply its own head, figures out a problem by solving it in much more granular steps, by breaking the problem into multiple different sub problems, drives towards achieving a goal, and applying multiple different strategies to achieve the goal, right? So that's a true definition of an agent. Now, when you talk about how and what enterprises are, most of the enterprises, they differ from each other because they have their own set of processes to be followed, they have their own set of customer experiences that they want to give, they have their own set of governance principles that are available inside the organization, right? So fundamentally, you cannot adopt a technology that was working directly to make it scale for a particular enterprise, right? So which is where the nuances of how does a particular industry, how does a particular organization within the industry perform becomes very important. And that's where I would say even the platform of what we call about today's applications is fundamentally changing. It's not about me writing a program in Java, Node, or a different programming language. Today, AI itself is a programming language. If I'm able to prompt something in English, and if I'm able to achieve a bunch of actions and activities with those prompts, and I'm able to make sure that there's a lot more tighter governance, there's a lot more tighter monitoring, and also human in the loop attributes available, where a particular program is performing exactly how it is supposed to perform on the data in which it is trained on, is very important, right? Which means I can't simply write a generic platform and then expect it to work for a customer, right? Because like I said, AI today is a very different way of solving extremely personalized and extremely very, very narrow problems, which is earlier was not possible. And the reason there's a lot of hype about it is because of the potential it is possible to do. And a lot of organizations, they are adapting and adopting their methodologies to this kind of hyper personalized, hyper precise problem solving, which is enabling them to unlock a lot of value, right? Now, the key part of all of that is when I talk about extremely precise problem solving, which means somebody has to know what the problem space is, how the problem space is different from anything and everything outside of that, which is a domain and an industry becomes extremely important. So success of a particular application in the AI world is much, much broader and much, much higher if it is very precise. Right? Because if I go to OpenAI and ask a question about how do I sort of make a sale for my e-commerce product, right? I get a very canned response because it's trained on the data that is publicly available. But for that particular application, like a chat GPT or a OpenAI's, fine-tuned model, to be much more relevant for me, I need to make it something that is trained on my information. It knows about my organization. It knows about what kind of target base I am looking for in the market and what is the value on investment I'm looking for, right? Which is a lot of variables now become very pertinent for us to create something that uniquely solves my need, right? Which is where today AI can do that. And that's why the value can be unlocked where a domain specific, industry specific agent or an AI application that is built has a lot more immense potential than a very generic one where it becomes difficult for an enterprise to grapple with, where they don't have a governance, that they cannot quantify the success of it, or they cannot know that this particular application is relevant for their need or not.
That's an insightful perspective, Arjun, and thank you for sharing that. And I think whatever you said, it perfectly highlights that the future of AI isn't just about building smarter systems, but about making them contextually intelligent for each industry. And I think that's where Agentic AI can truly redefine the value creation when it is not about understanding just the data or the resources that we need, but the business logic and decision patterns unique to each domain. Now, building on that, I think the other part that I wanted to touch down was something that a lot of organizations have been facing, this challenge of data silos. Now, data silos have been plaguing organizations since before the data analytics gold rush. Now, sadly, the silos remain an issue in many organizations, which calls into questions the reliability of AI outputs. Now, according to a recent Gartner survey, 63% of organizations either do not have or are unsure if they have the right data management practices for AI. In fact, Gartner also predicts that through 2026, organizations will abandon 60% of AI projects which are unsupported by AI ready data. So, I think many organizations are still struggling with the process inefficiencies and data silos. How do you think that agentic AI can bridge this gap and ensure end to end operational intelligence?
Good. I think that's a valid concern that organizations are grappling with, right? Because look, at the end of the day, for AI, which if you equivalent of that is an experienced human, right? And the reason I say experienced human is because for an experienced human, there are enough data points through the career that a person would have gathered to make that intelligent decision, right? Which means if there are enough experiences which are diverse, discrete, where there are learnings that a human has received, where one has become a lot more strategic, is equivalent and valid for AI too, agentic AI too, right? Because if the data, which is fundamental rubric of what makes and goes into decision making of an AI, is not available, then we are stuck with assumptions and hallucinations that AI would have to make up in the lack of the direct context. So, like you rightly pointed out, if we break the problem into two pieces, right? Today, enterprises have data in silos. And the reason for that is because, like I was mentioning earlier, the applications that existed until today were those that enable us from digitization to making it to automation to enabling humans to take a lot more faster decisions, right? Which means an application of yesterday had always captured information that enabled somebody to put data in a specific format, which enabled them to automate a bunch of activities. It never really touched upon the entire user experience or internal operation experience. And unfortunately, that kind of fundamental foundation would not help an AI because AI looks at a journey holistically, right? If you want to pick up a call and talk to a human AI agent, you expect the AI agent to know you, remember things about you, pull up information about you from multiple different sources so that is able to understand how to cater to you much better, right? So it's definitely difficult for an AI agent to not have all of these pieces of information available for it to be better serving and better providing an experience that is equivalent to an experienced human. And that's a real challenge. So what, from an INO standpoint that we've taken a stand, is we fundamentally work with each organization by creating the foundations to begin with, right? We tell for reaching a specific metric and we only focus on value. When we as a company talk to a customer, we don't ever talk about technology. We speak about what value can technology provide. If you're talking about a contact center, right? What is your net promoter score? What is your call retention? How many customers are you moving from your detractors to satisfactory and above satisfactory level, right? How do you move the needle of your customer experience from X to Y? So we only focus on giving value to a customer, so that way they are able to understand holistically the journey of a customer and then how to capture the data relevant to make this value possible. So we deeply engage with customers. We create a data strategy for them. We help implementing the data strategy and build on top of that the agentic applications that we go for each industry. So that's the secret sauce of success in the newer world, and to be able to drive value, to be able to drive businesses which deeply understand how to solve a problem. It's not about a simple POC being done in some department, right? Like you mentioned and also quoted by Gartner, is the reason most of these POCs fail is because every department organization today looks at holistically what has to be solved, but the POC runs on a very, very narrow scope, right? They don't try to figure out what is a bigger goal that they're trying to achieve. Because I don't think we have to prove technology. I think we have to prove what is the value technology can provide. And then we need to question, we have the right building blocks to make the technology successful. Okay. It's like, if I have a Windows 95 machine and I'm putting the latest operating system on that and I expect to provide a different kind of value to a customer, it's not possible. Because one, you don't have the right hardware and infrastructure. Second, you don't have the right fundamentals of making sure that you have the right data stack for that. Third, you don't have the right applications. And fourth, you don't have the right value to drive. So a combination of all four are super important for in today's world to be able to have the right success from agentic applications. A recent partnership that we've announced with Adani Airports, right? It actually fundamentally focuses on that, right? How do you look at the entire journey from airport operations to experience of a customer within the airport, and then tie that to providing a very omni-channel, which means voice, email, chat, social media, phone call, in no matter whatever touch points a customer is engaging with airport, how do you want to consistently provide that experience and make sure that they always feel connected in the journey? And that's why it is super important to build an agent that is grounded in information.
Definitely. And I think, the most exciting part is that agentic AI is not just about automating tasks. I mean, we have seen the earlier versions of, the verticals of AI doing that. But currently, what agentic AI brings on the table is that it can actually connect systems and decisions across the organization. So when we see this level of intelligence, I think it's pretty fascinating to see how it can eliminate this challenge of data silos and bring more transparency to operations. Moving ahead now, I mean, I think when we're talking about AI, the promise of agentic AI is immense. Again, Gartner forecasts that by 2028, a colossal of 15% of all day-to-day decisions will be made autonomously by AI agents. So I think AI agents can drive efficiency, cut costs, and free up IT teams for more strategic work. However, deploying them also presents its share of challenges. I mean, before deploying agentic AI models, it's important that organizations address issues that could compromise the reliability and security of these systems. So, scalability often determines the success in enterprise AI adoption. But what are some key challenges organizations are facing in scaling these AI agentic solutions across geographies or business units, and how do you think we can overcome them?
Good. See, unlike traditional software, right, where you deploy and scale, where your cost of serving a customer significantly goes down, and that's what has been the SaaS model, right? You buy a subscription and then you can, significantly scale with the number of customers, and then your costs pretty static, right? That's not how the economics of AI works. The economics of AI works very differently because every inference call, every call that is made to get help from AI is costly. So there has to be a clear business case, number one, on what is the value that you want to provide with AI, right? Because once the value conversation is defined and then you have the right fundamental building block set up, then organizations like IONOS, right, we come with very explicit domain experience where we know how to natively build the intelligence, where how do we reduce the cost curve, how do you make sure that you are able to provide that much more delightful experiences to the customers by not compromising on autonomous decisions, not compromising on making sure there is always human in the loop until we know that this is a backend process which does not require and that has been trained significantly enough with extremely high amount of confidence that the AI can perform. Right? For example, if I want to simply retrieve a file from a particular folder and copy it to a different location, I don't need a human to come and confirm that, right? But if I'm taking a strategic action of, hey, I'm going to refund somebody's airline ticket for like a threshold I set up as more than $500, right? Which that's what my company policy is. Today, if my call center agent is approving a ticket beyond a certain number and a supervisor is expected to approve, and we expect that particular tactical action to be taken by an agent, we need to bake in those processes into the system, right? Which means anything that is being done today by a human that requires supervision, the same thing has to apply in the new world also, where any decisions that are being done by an AI will need a supervision to just get the right approvals in place, right checks and balances to be put in, so that the system and the expectation from an enterprise standpoint is in place, both from a data governance standpoint, process governance standpoint, and also making sure that the right value metrics are being met. Right? Which means we should constantly evaluate how is my AI agent performing constantly, in the sense that compare a typical feedback that happens, right? Today, most of the call centers randomly select calls for customer support and quality reasons, right? And but if you flip the paradigm with AI, what we do today in IONOS is every call that is actually supported by an AI goes through the extremely meticulous real-time call intelligence, sentiment analysis of the call, so that it's not just sampling of calls. We are able to generate insights into the call, provide the quality of service of every call that is handled by AI, and you're a lot more grounded in data, right? Which means enterprises will somehow get a confidence that their applications running an agentic AI generate a lot more data, lot more meaningful data that can be acted on, and then they're able to move their process and adjust based upon the nuances that are coming out of it. Which means, like I said, the four pillars of governance, observability of how the interactions are happening, value to the customer, and also being able to scale with cost curves being reduced when they engage with enterprise and organization which knows how to deploy AI at scale. And the last part is how are enterprises able to adapt their business models, getting insights from the application data that is getting generated. Right? So that becomes a lot more interesting play for organizations to adapt to this new world.
Absolutely. And I think with the challenges and the kind of solutions that we can implement in terms of eliminating or navigating that complex landscape, I think that's when scalability comes into picture, because that's where the difference between a pilot and a full-fledged enterprise transformation becomes clear. And I think overall, it's not just about the technology stack, but it's also about aligning the processes, governance, and people across the organization. Building on that thought, when we are talking about that, we need to align people and processes as well. I think integrating AI agents requires organizations to rethink how work is structured, similar to the way they design roles for a human workforce. I mean, this defines including defining agent archetypes and equipping the digital workspaces with the tools and capabilities that agents will need to execute their tasks. Now, of course, when agentic AI, comes into the picture, I think it will change the relationship between human teams and technology. So, how do you think that change is going to impact? I mean, are we moving towards a more collaborative model where AI agents acts as digital co-workers, or how do you think the future is going to be?
Yeah, so I'll just give you an example of my personal example, right? So just last week, I have inducted my personal AI agent into my leadership team, right? Which means I rely on my personal assistant because I have not had a personal assistant for some time. And I was really debating, should I, hire a human personal assistant or should I just go with an AI personal assistant? And after a lot of deliberation, I just inducted an AI personal assistant. And for me, what has become very, very clear is that I needed an assistant which is able to understand my agenda, take actions that are coming out of my meetings, always available for me when I need across multiple different devices, being able to centralize all of my activity and help me with reminders, right? So, and if you look at it, right? So if I were to assistant human, there are working hours where I would be able to tap into the support. But with an AI assistant, I'm able to get 24/7 support across different geographies whenever I travel. I'm able to communicate in multiple different languages, and it's always available and on for me, right? To me, it's a huge productivity booster and also helping me make my life much more easier because I'm able to manage my calendars much better. I'm able to decipher what has spoken in a meeting because I just get a meeting update after it is done with clear action items resolved. I'm able to respond to my emails much better because I don't have to open an application. I simply narrate and I'm able to get precise content in the context of what was the email thread about. And I just oversee that and then send it out, right? So it's helping me a lot more strategic. It's helping the AI personal assistant is helping me a lot more data driven. So that's my personal, observation over the last 1 week that I've used it, right? But if I were to just expand on that and predict what I can see is that's where I feel there's a lot of mundane activities we do as humans and we take it as granted. Like, hey, my job entails doing these three things and I will do it, and then we do not focus on the strategic activities for which we have been hired to begin with, right? So suddenly what AI helps is it helps you remain extremely focused on the strategic aspect of your job, no matter in which level you join, and removes the drudgery out of it, which is data processing, understanding, analysis, which does not require a lot of brain power to do, but it requires a lot of diligence, is where an AI can do today, and a human can put that particular results in a much more strategic fashion. So being able to analyze, being able to process becomes a lot more easier. There are going to be jobs in which a lot of these mundane tactical activities that are being done, right, will be completely taken over by the AI agent, which is super helpful because a lot of organizations today fear that, hey, AI agents are going to take over the jobs and people are going to lose jobs. But the opposite has been proved very, very true over the last few months, right? Because if you look at it, when the whole technology of AI came, radiology was the first field that got impacted, and everybody started hypothesizing that yep, radiologists will be out of jobs. But if you look at statistics, today in the US, the demand for radiologists has grown by 3x to 4x. And the reason for that is very simple. Earlier, a radiologist used to look at 10 to 20, maximum 20 patients per day and analyze those images. Today, a lot of common problems, a lot of problems that an AI is able to catch, they're able to solve at least 100 to 200 images per day. And a radiologist is only looking at 30 to 40 images, which are extremely complicated, which requires a patient absolutely a need for seeing a radiologist, right? So suddenly hospitals are actually finding that they're in shortage of radiologists because a lot more patients are getting their tests done. Earlier, getting a test was not recommended because of reasons that they were not enough, I would say, people to analyze them. But now they're able to analyze it much faster. More patients are actually getting seen, and the quality of care for the patients and the number of strategic actions that radiologists are doing have all increased, right? So there are like quite a lot of data points I can give you across different fields, but the idea here is the same, right? Which means when technology is an enabler, we as humans will always find strategic value in being able to do the right thing, being able to do the right value for the customer. And that's where I feel agentic AI will be a much, much big role to play, and they will be an enabler. And we call it as a mate, MATE, which is a friend, as a buddy, or a companion for a human.
Definitely, Arjun. And I think agentic AI presents an opportunity for enterprises to fundamentally rethink the way they operate and compete. This emerging digital workforce is always going to grow, increasingly autonomous and capable of learning and collaborating across systems and domains. And organizations that can harness this potential early stand to capture the first mover advantages in efficiency, resilience, and innovation. Well, thank you so much, Arjun, for taking out the time and effort to be on our podcast today and helping us understand that by fostering collaboration, promoting transparency, and prioritizing ethical considerations, we can navigate the development and deployment of agentic AI responsibly and reap its benefit for the betterment of the business world as well as society. I believe agentic AI systems offer immense potential and they're going to be a game changer in the coming days. Thank you so much, Arjun. It was lovely chatting with you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure interacting with you too.
Great. Thank you so much. This is for our listeners. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained more insights and knowledge on agentic AI. Stay tuned for upcoming podcast episodes, and you can view all our previous episodes on Spotify and other leading platforms. Thank you so much.